Payroll. Chapter opener. By the year 2004, Starbucks had opened stores in Turkey, Chile, and Peru, opened its 1,000th Asia Pacific store in Beijing, China, grown to a total of 7,225 store locations, and sold its products around the world. Jen Cutini worked part-time for Starbucks Coffee while in college and became a full-time employee after graduation. She was recently promoted to manager of her own Starbucks coffee location. As a store manager with over 35 employees, it is her responsibility to prepare the payroll. This chapter provides the essential information on calculating and working with payroll. Gross earnings, wages, and salaries. Here are some definitions. Gross earnings, the total amount of money earned by an employee before any deductions are taken. Deductions, amounts that are subtracted from the gross earnings of an employee to arrive at the amount of money the employee actually receives. Payroll ledger, a chart showing all payroll information. Fair Labor Standards Act is a federal law that sets the minimum wage and also a 40-hour work week. Shift differential, a premium paid for working a less desirable shift, such as the swing shift or the graveyard shift. Definitions continued. Split shift premium, a premium paid for working a split shift, for example, for an employee who is on 4 hours, off 4 hours, and then on 4 hours. Compensatory time, or comp time, time off given to an employee to compensate for previously worked overtime. Salary, a fixed amount of money per pay period. Wage, a rate of pay expressed as a certain amount of dollars per hour. And time card, a card filled out by an employee that shows the number of hours worked by that employee. Here's an example of a time card, and on a time card you'll see certain similarities. You should always see your name. You should see a social security number, and in this case you also see an employee number. You'll see the regular time, your time in and time out, and also your overtime, time in and out. Here's a payroll ledger and an example. Jen Cutini is doing the payroll for 2 employees, Nelson and Orr. The first thing she must do is complete the payroll. So based on the chart we see below, in the first column we see the employee's name. Second column are the hours worked. We see a total, their rate of pay, and their gross earnings. So here's the solution. First, find the total number of hours worked by each person. For Nelson, his sum total of hours is 23. For Orr, his sum total is 27.25. And we also put that in the ledger. And just notice here that they have worked less than 40 hours a week, so there is no overtime rate. So now we multiply the number of hours worked and the rate of pay to find the gross earnings. So Nelson has total gross earnings of $193.20. Orr has total gross earnings of $194.02. Find overtime earnings for over 40 hours per week. We'll look at 3 different methods to calculate overtime earnings. The very first method is the gross earnings method, and to calculate the gross earnings, it's just the earnings at a regular rate plus the earnings at time and a half. There's also the overtime premium method. In the overtime premium method, we have the straight time earnings, which are the total hours worked times the regular rate. The total hours here include all hours over 40. And to that we add what's called the overtime premium. The overtime premium is calculated by the overtime hours worked times 1/2 the regular rate. The sum total of these two things will give you the gross earnings using the overtime premium method, which is much different from the earnings method. And last, there's the daily overtime method, and it's overtime earnings for over 8 hours of work per day. Here's an example using the overtime premium method. This week, Holly Kelly worked 40 hours and 12 overtime hours. Her regular rate of pay is $17.40 per hour. Find her total gross pay using the overtime premium method. Here's the solution. Kelly's total hours are 52, the 40 regular hours plus the 12 overtime hours. Kelly's overtime premium, if you remember from the previous slide, is her rate of pay times 1/2. So her overtime premium rate is $8.70. So to find Kelly's straight time earnings, we simply take her total hours, which includes the regular hours and the overtime hours, times her regular rate of pay, for a total of $904.80. Her overtime premium, she worked 12 hours overtime, and that's time 1/2 her regular rate, which is $8.70, which we calculated earlier, for a total of $104.40, which is her overtime premium rate. Adding the two things together to see that Holly Kelly has gross earnings of $1,009.20. Equivalent earnings for different pay periods. In the chart below, we'll take a look at the common pay periods. We have monthly, which are 12 paychecks per year; semi-monthly, twice each month or 24 paychecks each year; bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, which approximates to 26 paychecks per year; and weekly, 52 paychecks per year. Here's an example. An office employee earns $630 weekly. Find the equivalent earnings if the employee is paid bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, and annually. And here's the solution. To calculate the earnings bi-weekly, we simply take the weekly earnings, $630 times 52, since there are 52 weeks in a month. This particular product would give us the yearly total. Since we want to find the bi-weekly total, remember there's 26 paychecks, so we divide by 26 for a total of $1,260 bi-weekly. Semi-monthly, similarly, we take $630 times 52, we telescope it out to 1 year, and then we divide by 24. Semi-monthly, there should be 24 paychecks in a year for a total of $1,365 semi-monthly. To calculate the monthly earnings, similarly, we take the weekly earnings times 52 and divide by 12. That's the number of paychecks per year every month, for a total of $2,730 monthly. And annually, we simply take the weekly times 52 for an annual total of $32,760.